rise at break of day. Hammers echo through the mist. Twilight whispers magic kiss. Beneath the mountain.
This is the Purple Heart Armory Partisan Warhead and Dagon. Now, most of the time on the channel, we're typically reviewing sharp weapons, but today, Purple Heart Armory, or woodenswords.com, sent me a few of these synthetic spearheads to go ahead and do a review on. Now, they sent me two of them. You've seen this one in a few videos that I've done for you. You can see that my pole has been pretty chewed up because, of course, I'm hitting it with sharps all the time. This one is brand new. So showing you right out of the box versus getting some use out of it. This weapon right here fits snugly on the end of a PVC pipe. So if you're super cheap like me, whoop, just like that, and it's fairly secure, you can stab into it, you can smack stuff fairly well. You can see it's fairly flexible. A lot of the spearheads on the market right now are non-flexible and kind of hard to find a pole it will fit in. It does turn on top of this one, but snugging it down a little bit more, you'll be totally fine. So this right here, there's a question in HEMA sparring circles whether or not it's safe to use pole arms. And I'd venture this one is pretty okay. A lot of the time, like I said, your pole arm is not going to be particularly flexible. And if you hit somebody with it, then it's fairly painful. And this one you can definitely generate a lot of force on. Whoop. But especially when it's connected to something like a PVC pipe that bends fairly easily, I feel like you can kind of do little smacks and it doesn't hurt too bad. So this is like a perfect weapon to just use, to teach some intro to spear courses, and just wearing your normal HEMA gear would not be too hard to smack somebody with. Now, of course, with the spear, most of the time, your momentum is in the forward thrust, where you can thrust, whoop, and that's really all the amount of force that you need. So just kind of your normal spear fighting thrusts in sparring, if you're being nice, is actually not too bad. Now this weapon, you can see, this is the Partisan spearhead that they have. They have these cute little lugs right here, which a lot of spear trainers will just literally have just something that looks like this section right here. So you don't really get the opportunity to use any of the things like a winged spear would have had back in the day. Now, because we have the wings, you can actually do a whole ton of fun stuff with this one that you couldn't do with other spear trainers. So for instance, I can lock out a pole arm with this and push it just like you would have been able to do back in the day. You can also hook and pull, push and pull, which opens up a lot of fun opportunities in sparring. Now, a lot of things with these winged spears is these are actually bladed. So you can cut with this style of a spear, primarily a thrusting weapon. That blade can cut. So why would you want to have a cutting blade on a primarily thrusting weapon? Now, much like a rapier, if I cover, let's say I'm too close to get an effective thrust, or I can't like pivot in super easy, it's getting really awkward around there, I can cover that and then sneak that back edge into my opponent's head. Now, spear-wise, in general, a lot of the masters teach first that you have to have your weapon on top of theirs. That comes from a lot of later rapier sources and stuff like that too. You also need to make sure that whatever you do, you can be able to offend without getting hit back in return. From another angle, again, I have covered. My points ran past the point where I can effectively make a thrust to my opponent. So I can just take that and then I just twist my hips. I use the floor, power that, come through to just hack right there at the face, here at the eye level, or down here at the neck level. That makes a really effective get out of the way. See if your opponent is okay, see if they're still fighting. If they are, then you can finish it off with one of those good, powerful thrusts that spears are so good at. And from another angle, again, my point has gone past my opponent's head, cut down into their head, just like that. Now let's say, for whatever reason, I have attacked, they've covered, all of a sudden my point goes way out over on that side. Now I can turn my edge into my opponent and cut down at the legs, that direction. I can pull it back, return that thrust on the outside, or I can use the butt side of my spear, smack him in the head. to be smacking people with the end in sparring, but assuming these are real weapons and we're fighting to the death, covering over top of your opponent, stepping in close, taking your backhand and tightening it up, making this hand a bit tighter. You can throw your hips and your full weight behind it and punch your opponent directly in the head. And historically, especially back in the Bronze Age, these would have really nasty butt spikes on them. And especially in later periods than this one is designed for, you'll have pole arms, pole axes, all kinds of fun things on the end of a pole that'll have a butt spike, which is literally just a super gruesome spike that you can either smack your opponent with or you can ram it directly in their head, cover, and do a bunch of things with. And now, if you're looking to be sneaky, like I said, you can slip that lead hand through. One of the best feints in pole arms is you can aim at a low point down at the floor or at their feet, as if you're going to slip your hands in that way. But if you keep your hand in the same level, you can actually take your offhand, slip it down as you're thrusting, and push it through. And you can feint at their legs while striking them in the head, or alternatively, strike at the head while going down that way. And because the spear is so dynamic, you can do whoop, whoop, whoop the whole time and really sneak it in there. It's part of the reason spears were so deadly is because you don't really need a whole ton of training to do stuff like that. And a competent person can pick up one of these, practice for a week, and be able to defeat some of the best opponents they'll face. Not to mention the advantage against cavalry. And obviously, we're not going to be sparring with horses anytime soon. But mounting this into the ground and standing behind it, you can stick your foot here on the end, point that up towards a horse, and yeah, the horse isn't going to want to run into that. Now, a lot of you guys have seen the video where I'm using my nice Swiss Dagon to do a bunch of cutting and doing some fun stuff in that. Chris, over at Purple Heart Armory, I will dispose of the spear, also built a small Dagon synthetic trainer. So much like these, whoop, very synthetic, these also synthetic. It's made out of really thick plastic, but still bends. And this one is modeled, I think, on the exact dimensions of that Dagon that Todd Cutler had produced, because it's pretty much the same weight. I stuck them up next to each other, same distance. You have a really cute paracord wrap on that side that's just literally punched through there. Very solid. Feels good in the hand, too. My wife really likes this. You can hear it whistle. Whoop. So you can definitely make a pretty strong cut with this. I would be hesitant to smack your opponent full force with this one particularly. And much like the polearm, just because it is a bit stiffer than things like a fetter or other sparring weapons, you can definitely smack somebody really hard with this. But let's say we're having a friendly spar. We're both controlled. We both have some experience. I can fairly easily and not make a big difference to my opponent. This one, because you can smack things like the wood a little bit more than like a fetter, you can go up against PVC pipe, you can go up against wood, things like that, and this won't chop into it much like other metal training weapons. So this weapon, if we are engaged, and if you want to come up with a fun tournament scenario, get a group of people, spear, Dagon on the side, we have covered. Oh no, he has knocked my spear aside. I've dropped it. I can pull this out, cover, and then do all kinds of fun stuff to my opponent. Just smack him on the head real quick. Think how cool that would be with a group of like 25 guys going up against each other, and assuming you're all controlled and you're all wearing full fencing gear, that'd be a hilariously fun fight. Now, something that I definitely not recommend doing during sparring, I think Meyer in his spear section in his Renaissance longsword treatise teaches that if they ever pull your spearhead off to the side, you can drop your lead hand, raise your backhand to the ground, and whap your opponent right in the head. So from a different angle, we're standing in opposition to each other. Opponent goes over top of my sword, so he has the mechanical advantage, or my spear has the mechanical advantage, pushes me off to the side. My spearhead goes all the way over here. I can engage with the butt, or, like I was just talking about, drop the lead hand, whap, right in the head. Again, he engages, pushes my spear out to the side, drop my lead hand, point goes to the floor, smack, right in the head.